Hi, my name is Ryan Wolf, and I'm the president at Ability Ministry. Thank you for tuning in for another one of our short training videos. This month, we are going to be talking about different disability acronyms and abbreviations that you'll likely hear as you work with professionals, parents, and individuals affected by disability. Short story, as I originally got into the field of working in disability ministry, I was truly an outsider coming in. I didn't have a child with a developmental disability. I just felt called by God to make a difference in the lives of individuals with disabilities by bringing them closer to Jesus. And as I started working and as I started reaching out and as I started getting involved, I found out that there was so much that I didn't know. Whether I was talking with a parent of a child with a disability, whether I was talking to a professional working in the field, one thing that was common was the fact that they all used different acronyms and abbreviations and assumed that I just knew what they meant. Oftentimes I was embarrassed because I didn't know all these different acronyms and abbreviations. A lot of times I would just nod my head and pretend that I knew, and then later go look up those abbreviations. So we want to save you the embarrassment. We want to help you out. So what we have done is we have created kind of a cheat sheet of disability acronyms and abbreviations, a reference guide of the 56 most common acronyms and abbreviations that you'll probably come by. So we'd encourage you to print this off and keep this at your desk, or take this with you as you go to meetings so you can understand what people are saying. Another thing that we've done to try to give you a fun resource maybe to do with your volunteers is we've created that same list but without the explanation of what the abbreviations and acronyms are. So you can hand this list of 56 different disability terms and see how many your volunteers actually know. So it's a fun little exercise for you to do. Again, this is something that you can download on our website. But since there are literally hundreds of these different abbreviations, we're not going to go through all those today. We're not even going to attempt to go through all 56 today. What I'd like to do is just hit on maybe the top 20 that I think that you'll run into as you work in the field of disability ministry with either parents, professionals, or meetings that you may attend or go to in your community. So here are five. We'll go kind of five at a time. AT stands for Assistive Technology. ABA is Applied Behavioral Analysis, and it has to do specifically with ABA therapy. I'll talk about both of those in a little bit more detail in just a second. The ADA stands for Americans with Disabilities Act. That was signed into law by President Bush in 1990, requiring all businesses and public groups to provide accessibility to everybody with disabilities, whether it be a ramp, whether it be an elevator, all kinds of different accessibility issues. The ADD stands for Attention Deficit Disorder. Please note there's not an H there. We'll talk about that in just a second as well. ASD is Autism Spectrum Disorder. To go back to the AT, the assistive technology, it's basically an umbrella term that is used for any type of adaptive helps for people affected by disability, whether it be a vision or hearing, anything that's used to help people gain access to information, communications, can be used as assistive technology. Going back now to ABA, what is ABA therapy? ABA therapy is basically a tested and true therapy that is done by professionals, not just by anybody. Someone has to be registered or certified to use ABA therapy. And basically, you're trying to either decrease an undesirable behavior, or you're trying to increase a desirable behavior using different types of reinforcement, usually positive reinforcement that can be used. This is often used a lot in autism. On the autism spectrum, someone might go to someone who's an ABA therapist. ABA therapists are also great people to get to know. If you're a ministry professional, have them come and do training for your volunteers to talk about the different applications of ABA therapy that can be used in a ministry type environment. All right, back to some more acronyms. ASL. You're probably familiar with that. That stands for American Sign Language. There's different types of sign language that are used. ASL is probably the most widely accepted one. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. This is when you add the piece into not only are we having trouble paying attention, but we're having trouble sitting still as well. CP is Cerebral Palsy. This is a medical disorder. Is not necessarily accompanied by a developmental or intellectual disability. A lot of people make that confusion. A lot of people think, okay, that person has cerebral palsy. They must also have an intellectual developmental disability. Often not the case, so don't make that mistake. DD stands for developmental disability. DSM stands for the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. There are many different versions of that, and it is essentially the Bible for different diagnoses. It's what a professional will use to diagnose an individual with any of many different disorders. A DSP stands for a Direct Support Professional. There are different types of names for that, but these are the professional individuals that work with individuals with disabilities. They're oftentimes the direct care workers that bring individuals to your church with disabilities. They're paid to be there, oftentimes on a one-on-one type of ratio or slightly larger ratio. ED stands for an emotional disturbance. FABE, F-A-B-E, stands for Free Appropriate Public Education. Talk a little bit more about that in just a second. An IEP is a plan that's put in place, an individualized education plan that's put in place for a school-age child with a disability. An ISP is put in place for an individual that's maybe not school age, that has graduated, but they still need an individualized support plan that helps them with everyday living, whether it helps them with employment and different goals that they may have. So let's go back to FABE. Stands for Free Appropriate Public Education. It's basically saying that if your child has a disability, they are entitled to free education. It's meant to be appropriate to their developmental level. It is meant to be done in a public setting, not necessarily a secluded educational environment. So you may hear this when you're talking with parents or professionals. Back to the acronyms. IDEA. Individuals with Disabilities Education Plan. This may go with what we just talked about with FABE, and I'll talk a little bit more about it in detail in just a second. Also, going along with that, LRE stands for the Least Restrictive Environment. More on that in just a second. Ssdi, Social Security Disability Income. So if an individual has Social Security, if they have a disability, they receive income for that. It's very similar to SSI, but this is disability income. TBI is another term that you'll probably hear thrown around quite a bit. Stands for traumatic brain injury. A lot of developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities may be the result of a traumatic brain injury. TTY is an abbreviation for any type of telecommunications device for the hearing impaired, and there are several of those. So let's go back and let's look at two of those that we just mentioned just a few seconds ago. IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. This was originally signed into law in 1975, specific to giving students special education within schools. It was meant for, and it covers any of 13 different disabilities, specifically to learning disabilities and other health impairments. So it requires schools to provide, again, appropriate, free education. And if you have a certain disability, a school can't discriminate against your child. They must provide something that is appropriate. And they must provide this for a student with a disability, so there can be no discrimination. That requires schools to find and evaluate children with disabilities at no cost to parents, and provide children who qualify with an IEP. One of those things that we talked about just a second ago, the individualized education plan. It gives parents rights as well. Going along with this is it's always best to do things, whether it be in education or whether it be in the church world, in a least restricted environment, that LRE abbreviation. Least restricted environment, you can see at the bottom of the pyramid, we're talking about general education where it's mainstream. There's no special education classroom. There's no standalone classroom where everyone is separated. The least restricted environment would have everyone in the same room, this inclusion idea. And then you go up the pyramid to the most restrictive environment. Well, the goal is always to get children together and get individuals together in the least restrictive environment to allow them to have a shared experience. So these are 20 of the top acronyms or abbreviations that you'll probably hear while working in disability ministry. Like I said, there are literally hundreds. Go to our website, download the PDF that we have there that kind of gives you a cheat sheet of probably the top 56 that you will encounter as you work in this field of disability ministry. Don't be scared. Don't be intimidated as these different terms are thrown around. This is why we've created this video and this printable resource that you can have with you. Thank you again for tuning in to another one of our short training videos. Keep checking back each month as we will share more with you. Check out the videos page and the resources page to find more helpful resources for you and for your ministry. Thanks.